What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. My name is Miko, joined once again by my guy Morgan Cannon, and this is your go-to place for all things Lions related. That includes news, updates, analysis, and so much more. Morgan, we have wrapped up the 2025 draft. We did a lot of our recaps last week. We basically broke down first round picks, the first round pick in Tyleik Williams. We obviously discussed the Lions' second round picks and some of the moves that they made in the second and third round, as well as day three, where there was a lot of movement going on, but we also obviously recapped that day as well. But today we get into what we do best over here, or at least what I think we do best, and that is like look at the film and really try to understand what Dan and Brad and the scouting department and just basically the Lions organization as a whole, what did they see when they decided to prioritize these players as the guys that they wanted to add to their roster going into 2025? And today we get to start with Tyleik Williams, and I'm sure you and I are on the same wavelength. This is some really good stuff what you see from Tyleik in the two games that we're going to look at here.
Yeah, and you'll see a nice trend, right? Like from early in the year till like so far I've watched two games. The game we've included from the Texas game, if you remember the semifinal, and it's impressive. He pops, right? Like even if you're not watching Ohio State film for Tyleik Williams, you're going to be like, "Oh yeah, I see a little, he's going to catch your eye." And a couple other players did too, but he very clearly was a difference maker for them early on. And then especially later, like in my opinion, he's one of the better players on the field against Texas. That was go ahead.
Oh I was just gonna say, like, that's exactly the same feeling I got when I watched him play against Oregon, right? Like you see the things that definitely made him a priority for Brad and Dan, like the discipline, the intelligence, the awareness. Those types of things really popped. Like you said, there's kind of like this duality of Tyleik Williams at the beginning of the season, where we're going to see where they played Oregon, and then later in the season where they played Texas. And it seems like you get the full picture of who he can be as a player at the next level.
Yeah, and if you heard Brad's comments, it was with Dan Miller. If you haven't, we'll link that in the description. It's a good interview where they talk about each pick, and he said it. They see some of what Aleem, was coming out of college, out of NC State, to where like, yeah, he's a big dude, but he's nimble. Like he is a really good athlete too. You see it on tape. You're like, oh, he can move. That's a big man, and he's powerful. Like he'll throw some guards and tackles and centers out the club. Like he's keeping his eyes in the backfield. He's got good extension so he can see around into the backfield, see what's going on. And he disposes of some of these blockers in a pretty emphatic way. So he pops on tape, and I do think he's going to get cross trained. I think they're going to, see what he can do as a one tech. And if you are new to the channel, like a one tech is a nose tackle, excuse me. So he's over the center, either outside of either shoulder, or you can be a zero techs head up. So think like DJ Reader, Roy Lopez. And then if you want to think of like a three tech, you're outside of that guard shoulder in the B gap between the guard and the tackle, to make it simple. And that's where Aleem has been getting more of his run lately, where you're attacking half a man. So that's why I can definitely see the vision now of, after watching some of Tyleik's film, where Brad and Dan and that, their staff are seeing more than just a nose tackle in Tyleik Williams. I think they're going to see like, hey, maybe we could have two Aleem McNeil type players here pretty soon, right, Miko?
Yeah, and I think that's something that even when I was first, talking about them picking Tyleik, my first thought was like, okay, one of the better run stuffers in the draft, clearly probably a DJ Reader replacement. But then, like you said, you get into this tape and you're just like, I mean, he does that well, yes, but you also get that immediate feeling that if the Lions just ask him to do that they're leaving a lot of meat on the bone in terms of his ability and talent as a player.
Yeah, and I think that's why they were happy to get him at 28. They're like, oh, we're getting, a dynamic 3-down defensive tackle, hopefully in a year or sooner, and to pair alongside with Aleem McNeil. And they've shown you that they'll move scheme around what the roster is, where the strengths are. So in the future, if Tyleik Williams does end up becoming like an Aleem McNeil type player, where he can whip some people in one-on-one passing situations, while also being able to like play a gap and a half or two gap against, then you're really dominant against the run. You got some dudes in there, but they can switch things up. They can have like two, three techniques, with Aleem and Tyleik on the field at the same time. So there's a bunch of things they can do once Aleem gets back. And hopefully Tyleik hits the ground running, because it would be a lot of fun. Like, we already touched on how deep that room is, right? So I'm excited to get into the tape.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like we said, we're going through 2 games. It's about 14 plays that we're going to look at. We have a good half of them come from the Oregon game, and then we have another half that came from that Texas game. And I do think if you're watching this, you'll get a really good sense of, like I said, or like we've been saying, the duality of Tyleik Williams as a defensive tackle, what he does well as far as read and react, and then what he does well as far as just being in attack mode. You can definitely see the full picture. So let's go ahead, Morgan, jump into the first set of plays here, which are mostly going to be from the Oregon game. And I think this game really shows off a lot of the traits that Tyleik Williams has. Like I said, when I went through this tape, there were a couple plays here and there that really like popped, but for the most part, it's like you're looking for characteristics in his game of like, okay, what is it that Brad and Dan really focused on when it came to him as far as a player outside of just being dominant every single down?
He's just strong, right? You see that, like, he's got some strength in his hands and his grip. You see him lined up here between the guard and the tackle, and he gets off the ball with some juice, let's call it, especially for being a big man. So yeah, this is a good example of him just causing chaos, right, Miko? Like, he is able to occupy space, drives that guard up into the backfield, and then they end up, the backside isn't so clean, Jack Sawyer. He screams down the line, but they did what they were supposed to do, play side, and you see that a lot. If you try to block him with one player, with one blocker, it's usually going to be a tough time. He can get moved if you double him. Most people can if you're not, a DJ Reader type, a Vince Wilfork type, that kind of thing, Vita Vea. But he can hold up against a double team pretty well. And if you try to block him with one player, you get a lot of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like that's the thing that, like I said, these are the types of things that I'm like, oh, I see a lot of Aleem in that situation, because that was a lot of the stuff that Aleem did early on when he got in Detroit, where it's just like, all right, just try to displace guys, help in the run game, force things to the backside of the defensive line so that somebody else can clean up the play. But at the same time, you look at that type of strength in his hands and that type of pop to be able to drive guys back, and it's like maybe there's a lot more to his game than just being able to be a run stopper.
Yeah, and you see that. Like, he's going to be a 3-down player, and that's what the Lions envisioned for him, and that's why they're happy to be like, yeah, we'll sit tight at 28 and pick him. So I get the value, and I get why they were excited when you saw that phone call. So
yeah, absolutely. Next play that we got here, Morgan, I think is a really good example of his play recognition. When Brad Holmes got to the podium, was talking about Tyleik, one of the things he really started raving about was his awareness and his intelligence as a player. And sometimes you have to be able to think quickly on the fly in terms of like no huddle types of things that are happening in the NFL and things like that. How quickly can you recognize what the opposing offense is doing and then make an adjustment, either with your entire unit or just you by yourself being able to quickly recognize and diagnose what's happening on the field?
yeah, and you watch him here. So he's just a heady play that you pointed out, Miko, and I like this. So he's outside the guard shoulder in the 3 technique right now, peeking into the backfield. And you can kind of see what Oregon is lining up here for. They're lining up for a little sneak at the last second before. That's Dylan Gabriel, isn't it? Snaps the ball. He's going to slide in over to the 0 and try to, mug up the A gap. And I think it would have worked better if these linebackers would have fit, get downhill with a little more sense of urgency, or at least be closer to the line of scrimmage and be ready to make a play, not looking around.
Yeah, I mean it's something that could have been more cleaned up to be more successful, but at the same time, it's still a good highlight for Tyleik of just being that type of heady player, being someone who's aware of what's happening on the football field.
Yeah. And you see that, and there's a reason a lot of people were high on him. You know what I mean? Like, I think some fans are like thinking, that's kind of a reach, for a nose tackle. But again, with what we're about to show throughout this whole video, it's a lot more to that man's game than just being a nose. So
yeah. And so I think the first few plays, like I said, are really good plays in terms of traits, right? Really good play recognition, really good strong hands, really good pop, things like that. The next thing that you want to be able to see, Morgan, from your defensive tackles, you want to be able to know that they can get by guys. You want to know that they can be able to, if someone tries to put hands on them, they know how to get those hands off of them. And Tyleik Williams definitely has that in his bag.
And yeah, because he's got a strong bull rush, which we'll see it a couple times through this series. So a lot of the times you'll have guys oversetting, offensive linemen oversetting and lunging. And when you do that, he can feel it. He has a beat on it, and he's got good, quick, active hands. So he'll swat him, dip a shoulder, rip under, and he's by you pretty quickly. And then I hope this I hope he brings this right away, man, because it would be such a juice like to a defense to get like consistent interior pressure, and like it's just chaos if you can consistently do that, because even if your quarterback is mobile and can throw off platform, it's just tougher to deal with, you know. So yeah, this is I love this. And if you watch him, he sells this because he goes down to a knee, man. And if you know that, if you're a defensive lineman or you're familiar with that kind of play, this is a common technique to take a double. So Tyleik makes him think like he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to take this double. Psych, beats his hands,
Mm-hmm.
rips under. Like that's a it's hilarious. That's a good play, man. Doesn't even rip, really, just gets him off of him.
I was gonna say it's not even like a violent rip, right? It's just the simple fact that I was
Slap.
able to get you off balance and then able to be able to again force things backside. Like defensive tackle is a very interesting position, Morgan. When you talk about like, I know people want to talk about sacks, they want to talk about tackles for loss, but there's so much that goes into it, and just being able to occupy space in some situations and to be able to force plays to the strong side, to the strength of your defense, whether that's again being able to occupy space so that your linebackers can come and rally, or if you know that you have numbers on one side of the field, being able to push the running back or the quarterback to that side to make things more difficult for the offense.
Yeah, and you know who's very happy about the Tyleik Williams pick, I'm sure, is Aiden Hutchinson, because it's just another, you know what I mean, another dude
Absolutely.
who can help him get buckets. Because if people like Aleem and DJ Reader and Levi and Makai Wingo and everyone else, Aleem, are pushing, you know, collapsing the pocket from the inside, like, and you have 97 ripping and roaring like he was last year, people are going to be productive, man. There's going to be sacks to go around, in my opinion.
And we're going to get to more of the plays where you get to see Tyleik be more of like in attack mode in terms of just like really just trying to beat the guy that's in front of him. But I just to foreshadow that a little bit, Morgan, like that's the type of stuff where like having him and Aleem, once Aleem's healthy on the field, like that's going to be the thing that's so exciting to watch, because oftentimes the Lions have to either put like Josh Pascal in, or they had to kick Levi inside. And not to say that those guys aren't good at this as well, but you have somebody that's again, if you want to call it a lean 2.0, like you get two of those guys on the field at the same time, and then you can still maybe put a Levi Onwuzurike out as a big edge, or you can still put a Josh Pascal out next to those guys. Things start to get much more interesting in terms of being able to force things either to Hutch, or Hutch being able to force things to those guys.
Yeah, and I love that you made that point, because even against the run, and I know people, like you just talked about, people want to talk about sacks, but against the run, even with Aleem hurt, you're going to have options to, like, on early downs, like you have Reader or Roy Lopez at the one tech or the nose, and then you could have a Levi or a Pascal or Tyleik Williams or Makai Wingo, and you can interchange those pieces at the three tech and like the big end position, like you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
opposite of Hutchinson. And that's an imposing front to run against. And if you can stop the run consistently with, you know, only 5 or 6 bodies on early downs, then that makes things easier on the back end too, just because you have more people to cover. It's a pretty simple calculus. I know it sounds kind of dumb, but that's really what it boils down to a lot of the time.
Absolutely. So another thing that we were to talk about here, and we talked about it a little bit already, Morgan, in terms of like again, Tyleik being very heady, being aware. But I really wanted to pick out this play specifically. Again, it's not him making a play per se, but it's the traits of him as a player that I think will make him endearing to this defense. And that is that typically when you have defensive tackles, certain defensive tackles have a one-track mind, right? Where it's just like, hey, I want to beat the guy in front of me and I want to get into the backfield, and they're so focused on beating the person in front of them that they're not aware of what may be happening with the quarterback or with the running back or any type of like mishap with the exchange. Tyleik does such a good job time in and time out of just having his eyes in the backfield and being so aware of what's going on back there with the quarterback.
Yeah, and you have to have this when you're playing the run and doing, especially against running backs that can, you know, jump cut and, cut, backside and string things out, because you have to be disciplined and not get too far upfield because there's running lanes. So Yeah, I love that about him too, because it just makes for a sound run defense, and you can get after people, but you got to, time and place. You got to earn the right to rush the passer. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I said passer, like we always say on this channel. So yeah, I love this. I love that you brought this one up, because he's really good at keeping his eyes in the backfield, which is important in today's game, just because there is a lot of stuff going on back there. Look at that jet motion after the fact. It's just it's a lot going on.
Yeah, and again, it may not necessarily be his responsibility to have like that backside contained, but if he's part of the problem, right? Like how many times did we see it on other teams or even at times with the Lions where everyone's flowing in the same direction and you're just like, did anyone bother to stay true to their assignment? And Tyleik shows time and time again, he knows his assignment, he knows what he's supposed to be doing, and he at least try to do that very well time and time out.
Yeah, you have to, you can't make the hero play every time. Sometimes you're just backside contained, to where if Saquon Barkley hits a jump cut and runs the other way, you're not the fool getting yelled at and filmed the next week. So, you know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, right. For not having your eyes in the right place. Like it's those little things that sound like simple, but like it happens every single game that there's somebody whose eyes are not in the right place, and you just don't want that to be your defensive tackle on so many situations when you're expecting them to be your front line in terms of stopping the run or getting pressure on the quarterback.
Yep, absolutely. You got to, man, because otherwise you open yourself up to bad things.
So next play we got here, we talked about how Tyleik can obviously beat a man in front of him, but sometimes like, hey, let's say you do get hands on Tyleik. He's man enough to take you with him wherever he wants to go. Because if he, again, is using his eyes and he's recognizing where the play is going, he has no problem taking on a block and then just being like, hey, how about you follow me over here while we go make this play on the running back?
Yeah, and some defensive tackles and defensive linemen in general aren't comfortable traveling with a passenger, is what sometimes what I like to refer to it as. Like, a lot of them think like, I have to cleanly defeat this block to go make a play on the ball carrier, when sometimes you can't. Like, maybe a guy's got you like inside and he's got good, he's latched onto you. Well, all right, I'm just going to scrape down the line of scrimmage here and cause a pile up, because that's what you got. That's what you do as a 330-pound man, or whatever his playing weight here was at the time. So yeah,
Right.
you see this a lot, because he's fine. Like, if he can't defeat the block, he's like, all right, you just come with me.
Like, I love by the time that Tyleik gets here, that the guy that was blocking him is on his back. And it's just like, hey, that's not where we're supposed to be.
No chaos, man. But it'll work though, and then everyone's able to rally. Ohio State did run to the football well. It makes sense why they were such a good team last year, because I've watched a couple of the games now, and they really do fly to the ball.
And I think that's another thing that's going to, again, pair very well with Tyleik's game is like he's used to like, hey, if I can at least disrupt a play, that I can trust that the guys behind me are going to come and rally. And that's something that Detroit does very well. That's something that I expect, even though they're switching defensive coordinators with Kelvin Shepherd. Kelvin Shepherd's still going to preach everyone run to the ball.
Yeah, that's a staple of any defense that's worth anything, to be honest with you. And Shep's a linebacker, and by trade, he's going to preach run to the football. Everybody, communication and run to the football.
So got to keep a couple more plays here from the Oregon game, and then we're going to get into some of the Texas tape. But speaking of running to the ball, Morgan, again, not a play that Tyleik is making a big splashy play, but I think this is something that when Brad and Dan saw this show up time and time again, because I saw this show up time and time again in this game alone, I'm sure they were like, hey, that's a guy that can play for us. And that's the simple fact that Tyleik is going to run to the ball. No matter where the ball is, he is going to hustle and at least try to be a part of the play. He's not someone that's taking plays off and sitting there just like, oh, well, it's this play's clearly not coming to my side, so I get to take, a couple extra breathers.
Yeah, and I'm sure that stands out for them when they're, initially going through his tape and seeing if he's a fit. And I like that. He's good at, for a big man too. Sometimes these defensive tackles, especially the big boys, they're not the best at defeating cut blocks, but he's athletic and nimble enough to, if you're just coming at him like a sloth, he's fine putting his hands on your back and just getting out of the way, and then you're laying there.
That's a good point. Yes, right? Because especially in a long game too, right? Like this is, I think by the time that plays like this are happening, it's like third, fourth quarter, like to still have that type of awareness and still to have that type of energy to be like, no, I'm going to defeat some blocks and at least, try and stay off the ground. Very, very something again, that's a huge win, a huge check mark in the box of Tyleik Williams. The last play that we got here from the Oregon game, and then we'll start getting into some of the stuff from Texas. He takes on double teams well. Again, this is the stuff that's going to make people think that like, hey, he's a good replacement for DJ Reader. like you and I were saying earlier, Morgan, I think that's still, kind of leaving a lot to be desired from his game, but he can do it. If you want him to go out there, and take on double teams and things like that and occupy space, he's got no problem doing the dirty work in that regard.
Yeah, and he's strong enough to do it. It's just like you said, he's not someone you don't want to use him like a DJ Reader where you are like he's at the nose 75 or 80% of his snaps. Because like you said, that's doing him a disservice for the skill set that we've seen here. But he's capable of it if you need to, like if Reader's out for a series and you need somebody to Roy Lopez is like not available for whatever reason. I definitely think Williams is capable of doing that in a pinch. And is he going to get moved here and there? Yeah, like most people will, like we talked about. But he's capable of being a competent nose if you need him to be.
Yeah, I can at least say, like, in watching the Oregon game, and I'm sure I don't know if the same thing was true when you went through the Texas game, but like there's not a lot of plays where you just see him get like just completely like, turned out and opening up big gaps. Like he anchors extremely well to occupy space. Like you said, he might get moved back a couple yards and that's fine, but he's not just giving up, huge lanes for opposing running backs or quarterbacks to just rush through.
No, especially like not even people try to scrape him a lot and that doesn't even work. Like, if they're trying to climb, they get a little chip on him and get to the next level that you kind of have to commit two bodies to move him at all.
Okay, so I did a lot of the talking and setting up for a lot of the Oregon games because that's kind of the film that I focus on. Morgan, you took the lead on a lot of the Texas game. So I'm gonna let you do a lot of the setup here because I know there's a lot of really good plays that you kind of called out here in this game.
Yeah, and it was just you see him start to pop a lot. Like I said, I think he was one of the more impactful players on their defense. So first rep here, he's going to be in the 3 technique over the right guard, and you watch him. He's just going to scrape down the offensive line, make the play over on the boundary side of the field, and he does this a lot. It showed up on the Oregon tape a couple of times, but he keeps his eyes on the backfield, able to scrape down, make the play. So it's a good one.
Yeah, this is the type of stuff that, like I said, like I feel like I didn't get to see as much of this in the Oregon game, but when you do see it here in the Texas game, like it's violent. It's with a lot of intention to arrive and be able to like finish plays in these types of situations.
Yeah, that was a good hit. Low key, like people don't. That's one of those that the running back's like, that hurt, but most people don't even think that's a big hit. But he's able to get a little on that one, a little extra sauce.
Absolutely.
Next up, we
All
got. So, my bad. Go. You want to go?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say where next up he's defeating a block like pretty quickly and helps make a big stop on third down early in the game for them. So this is one of my favorite plays because this is a money down, right? And he's able to come up with the big stop. So again, lined up 3 in the 3 tech. Jack Sawyer's out there with him, extends, rips underneath, stacks him up, makes the play, gets his defense off the field.
Yeah, I like this. Again, being able to again, maybe get moved a little bit, right? But still being able to do, like you said, he's at least able to, once he's able to engage, kind of extend a little bit, create some space between him and the offensive lineman so that he can still keep eyes on the football, get rid of him, get to the football. Like that's textbook stuff right there.
Good eyes for a big man. He got eyes like a linebacker. It's nice. Next one. So he just tosses. Watch the center here. He's just going to toss him out of the club and is able to make the tackle. So you see this a lot. He keeps his eyes in the backfield. See you.
He's strong. That's a definite highlight right there. Again, whenever you're able to just shuck other grown men, right? Like that's something that gets you drafted in the first round, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he does it a lot. Like, and there's one thing to like hip tossing somebody and not just doing it to be violent, and then there's another to keep your eyes in the backfield and just kind of dispose of people and help make a play in this at like almost the second level because someone did get moved there, so there was a little bit of space to run, but thankfully they got a dog and Tyleik on the backside of that play.
No, absolutely.
All right, so next one. It's just going to be a nice quick swim move out of his stance. He's going to catch the guard lunging, kind of what we were talking about earlier, where the guards can kind of like overset because they're expecting his bull rush, which is not to be messed with. And he's able to swim him, make the play, help make the play. He kind of just glances off of him, but I don't think 26 was expecting the 3 tech to be in the backfield in a blink.
No, but I think that's still like, I mean, again, it's this really good mix, right? Of like really quick get off, but at the same time, like patience to be able to hit that swing move, right? To be able to get over the guard and then be able to keep his eyes in the backfield, size up the running back, and even though he doesn't get a clean hit, again, still just kind of disrupts things a bit.
Yeah, and I want to say these are the reps when Brad Holmes and the rest of the Lions brass are watching. These are the reps that make them be like, oh, okay, like there's more to him than just a nose tackle or like a space eater on the inside here. Because shoot, man, I mean that's a pretty poor effort by 54, but just being nimble enough to make that play in space is something that I really like.
Well, yeah, to still be like aware of what's happening, right? So again, not getting overly excited and like, now you're chopping your feet and this, that, and the other. Like, no, like I'm just gonna quickly beat you to your outside shoulder and then get in the backfield. But barely real simple type of plan of execution there.
Yeah, especially if you're going to look at the ground and lunge at me, then I'm really going to make I'm really going to make you look dumb. Yeah, I get it though. I'm sure if I kept getting my someone was bull rushing me and running through my face, I'd probably start doing some stupid stuff too. So I never had to play guard at a high level. So next one, just a quick win again in a pass rush situation. Starts at the 3 tech, but ends up winning against the center because of the game they're running. And another example of where I'm like, okay, yeah, I see the vision, Brad. So you'll see the. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say these are the plays where you see like the Aleem traits, right? Where you're like, okay, this is like modern Aleem, if anything.
Right, like Aleem after he's developed. So you'll see the end over there with the long sleeves. He's going to loop all the way around. So Tyleik and Jack Sawyer are going to slant that way. And man, he just runs through. That center had a tough day, 65 Majors or whatever his name is. But this is what it looks like to me when Tyleik's attacking half a shoulder. So he immediately sees he can work under his shoulder. He's able to work under his whatever, the punch that 65 tried throwing at him. And this is what made, is this Ewers 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ewers here, he's staring at that because it's coming straight at him. So quick decision, gets rid of it early.
A little bit of a hold, just a little bit.
Yeah, he's holding on for dear life, man, because he's like, dang, I can't get beat this bad. So, but Majors wasn't able to get a good like punch on him. And because that's like you said earlier, Miko, Tyleik having those active hands for a big guy, real active.
Yeah. And I think like that's the type of, like I said, those kind of plays where you're just like, yeah, this dude can do way more than just be a 1 tech and just occupy space. Like the way he's doing it. It's not the simple fact that he's beating someone inside. Like you're a defensive lineman, you're going to obviously win a few snaps. But when you're doing it so quickly and you're doing it so violently and so aggressively, it's like, man, like if he gets to Detroit, where at least there seemed to have been that shift, at least in philosophy. I think even from like Dan's first year to his second year, where they were like, hey, we want our defensive linemen to be more, attack minded, to be more, to be more reactive and not just try to read things, like just go and just, get after the person in front of you. I think Tyleik is going to thrive a lot in this type of system.
Yeah, and that early on it was they're like, two gapping more often, a little more read and react. But like you said, Miko, I can see this. I can see the vision, man, because if he can do this consistently, it's just it's a huge, because you already have 54 and 97. So yeah, I love it. And I'm glad he fell to him, especially after watching the tape. This one warmed my old curmudgeon football heart, man. So watch him here. Really great extension. He's going to help spill this run for a 1-yard gain. So he just extends. When I say extension, he's getting into the lineman's chest. He's extending so he can see. He peeks inside, peeks outside, and another maybe almost hold. But you spill this to your linebackers. This is a linebacker's dream right here. You're able to get downhill, fill, and make the play on the ball carrier, and it's all thanks to your defensive tackle again, causing a bunch of chaos in the backfield.
This is the type of this reminds me of the drill that they run during the combine, right? Where they have them hit the sled, right? Lift and then just look to whatever side and then react. Like that's a good demonstration of why a drill like that is so important in the combine, to be able to see hey, can you be patient enough and powerful enough to, again, be able to extend, to get that type of separation between you and the offensive lineman, and still have the awareness to be able to see where the run or the quarterback is to be able to make a play.
Yeah, and he's doing this against an offensive line that has a couple of future pros on it. We saw Kelvin Banks get drafted high, and yeah, he did this a lot, and he was just clearly the best, defensive lineman for Ohio State, at least that day. I didn't watch all their games, but
Yeah. And I think this going through this film session, I think is a really good reminder to people because I think when we talked about defensive tackles, like even here on the Pride of Detroit channel, we talked a lot about Derek Harmon as far as like the defensive tackle that like everybody possibly wanted. But you also saw Walter Nolan go in the first round. But right after those two, it was Tyleik Williams. And I think the only reason that he probably didn't get talked about in the same breath as those other two as a possible first rounder is just because like there weren't enough of these games, right? Like if he played like this every single week for like the 3 or 4 years that he was in Ohio State, like we're talking about him in a much different light. But when you get to actually dissect these plays, it's like, no, the Lions probably got something really special at the back end of the first round.
that's what their vision is. It's never a guarantee, as we know with the draft. It's always a gamble, but they obviously see some long-term projection here that gets them excited, and we certainly see the vision, and I hope y'all do too. We have one more play. So speaking of keeping his eyes in the backfield, man, and we mentioned there's, Kelvin Banks is on this Texas offensive line. This time he's going to work against Banks and just tosses him out the club, man. Like I thought the tight end, you helped me with this, Miko, because I thought the tight end originally kind of tripped Kelvin Banks, but it actually looks like you pointed out it's actually the reverse. As Kelvin Banks is kind of getting shucked here, his ankle kind of gets caught up with 85 and 85 ends up tripping.
Yeah, right. Like he's not able to like fully be able to like extend and really probably drive into Tyleik Williams the way he wants to. And that works out to Tyleik Williams' favor because now he has two less guys that he has to worry about.
Yeah, I think I couldn't tell if he was trying to climb to the linebacker or not, but either way, a really good play. And yeah, he takes a good angle too. I love that he, like the shuck here, gets rid of Kelvin Banks, and then he takes a good angle down the line of scrimmage to help string this out. And once again, Ohio State run into the ball like some demons.
Again, I know we've talked about this a lot, but like I really do want people like just look at Tyleik Williams' helmet and realize that he never takes his eyes off the running back.
Yeah, that is a good point. Like keep your eyes on his eyes right here. So boom, working against a pro level tackle. I don't know when Kelvin Banks got drafted, but it was really high. Shucks him. Man, I'm telling you.
Those little nuances to his game that I think is going to make him like someone that's actually going to be able to play, possibly be one of the starters, right? In week one, seeing as they're not going to have a Aleem, and so he can definitely fill that 3-tech role. But even not, like it's plays like that that are going to get him on the field early and often here in Detroit.
Yeah, and I'd be fine if him and Levi started out like splitting the lion's share of those snaps at the 3-tech because I know they lean veteran heavy, and Levi was productive, but this looks like maybe a different breed of cat, like you talked about, Miko. So now we're into our our final play of the series. So late in the game, Texas needs a score. They did not, in fact, get the score, but it's 3rd and 6, and you can kind of see in his stance, like I'm about to get after this man in a strict sprinter stance, is able to work underneath the center a bit and just walks him back to the quarterback, Miko.
Bro, I'm serious. If they play him only as a run stuffing like 2-gapper, the Lions are missing out because this play right here is the one that got me probably the most excited. Like you walk another grown man back like this, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and some offensive linemen will be like, "Oh, this is a good rep. This is a win." I'd be like, "Man, he got walked pretty quickly." So I don't know. Offensive linemen are funny like that, but yeah, I'm with you, bro. I don't think I'm happy. I was so happy to hear Brad talk about that. I think he mentioned it in the presser and then in his interview with Dan Miller, it was on Fox about like their vision for him and what he can do. Both in the near future and then down the road. So I'm excited. Hope y'all are too. That was fun. We didn't even go that long. Honestly, I was like, this could be long, bro.
Trust me. I definitely thought this was going to be like 45 minutes or longer. But yeah, we got through 14 plays efficiently, right? Hopefully you guys really enjoyed this film study. Like I said, it's something that we're going to do for every prospect in this draft class and really just highlight what we think the Lions saw when they decided to draft these players. Again, not saying they're perfect, right? Not to even say, like, obviously we had a lot of glowing things to say about Tyleik Williams, but yeah, there's just as many things that if you went through his film, you would probably find areas that he needs to improve on as well. But I do think I can at least go through these two games that we looked at and kind of get a really good idea of what the Lions saw when they decided to prioritize him and why he eventually ended up being that pick at 28.
See, and this is why Miko's the best host, man, because he articulated what I was already swimming around in my brain. That's how we try to look at these film studies. Like, we mentioned a couple things, that he can, the double team part, like where he does get pushed back a little bit. He's not Vince Wilfork or, just able to anchor against whatever and whenever. But we try to look at it like, okay, what Brad said, that helped give it context. I'm always thankful this regime is, fairly transparent in the world of professional sports. They're like, hey, this is what we see. This is why we did it. And yeah, it just helps give context, because that's what we're trying to show y'all the vision. So hopefully just it's a little bit easier to understand. So I think sometimes people make football to be this super complicated thing, and it can be, but you can try to simplify it to where you're like, oh, okay, I can understand that.
And I think, again, hopefully us looking at All-22 film makes it that much easier. There's not as many things distracting you from what's going on, and you can see how plays are developing when we do it this way. So like always, we hope you guys really enjoyed this content. That's going to do it for this video. The next time you guys see us, we will be talking about another player in the trenches, Tate Ratledge, and that's going to be fun. Anytime we get to watch offensive line tape is some of the most exciting tape to watch, because you get to see other grown men bully other grown men.
That's it, man. Like what did Tyler Booker say? I'm sad he went to the Cowboys. He said, I might be paraphrasing, but he said it's like legal assault. So yeah, that's fun too. And offensive line play can be tricky, but if you break it down, and like Miko said, you have that All-22 angle, it makes it way easier to see. And I hope that is the case for some of y'all. Like, I know we have some new people watching, and I hope that's the case. Like, you're like, oh, I can see a lot more, because the broadcast angle is sweet. Don't get me wrong, if we're just watching a game on the couch chilling, but you got to have this to see the full impact, especially with a player like defensive tackle, where so much of their stuff isn't really like box score or transparent. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's so easy to get caught watching what's happening with the quarterback or the ball. Doing stuff this way makes it easier for us to kind of like hone in on exactly what we believe we should be looking at when we're talking about a player like Tyleik Williams. And like we said, next week it'll be Tate Ratledge, which is going to be really exciting. So with that said, if you guys are looking for any more additional Lions content, you guys already know you can go check out prideofdetroit.com. There are so many other articles that have been written about each and every draft prospect. I believe there's like a 5 things to know. So if there's things that you want to get to know about Tyleik Williams even more, definitely go check that out. I believe there's a highlight article up there. So if you just want to see like, hey, what does he do well? Go check out that video and get to basically just watch his highlight tape, and you can kind of really get a good idea of what he is at his best in those situations as well. So with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and share this video with a friend who maybe has some questions about why the Lions decided to draft Tyleik Williams. Show them this, and maybe that'll help give them a little bit more perspective as well. But with all that said, we thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.